it's interesting time-wise because it's like what happens in the micro happens in the macro, vice versa, right? And it ripples out usually from the micro first to the macro.
All right, we're back. My stream got hacked for a few minutes, but I fixed it.
Are you still on the stream, Dave?
We're still on the stream, yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
Are we live?
We're live, dear. We're very live.
I should play some fireside tunes. Oh. Anyone know the boxer?
No, I'm sitting here beside myself. Look, there I am, right next to me. Okay, go on.
So everybody was kind of talking earlier about the disappearing children, possible connections to underground bases. I noticed you were also touching on the kind of global fear lock that this planet seems to be imprisoned in right now, and everybody's focused on.
Especially the United States. I mean, isn't it public knowledge that Ron Paul is leading, but yet nobody's doing anything about the faulty votes counting?
All they talk about is Milt the Hack Romney, Newt the Thief, good whatever his name is, and that idiot from Texas named somebody or other.
Well, let's just say that Mitt Romney, I have a weird feeling that being indictable as a possible felon would rule you out for a good presidential candidate. And the amount of money that he has buried offshore should, pretty much make that a guarantee. And yet, somehow, that makes him a viable presidential candidate because they got something to use. Ron Paul wants to cut $1 trillion off the deficit and get rid of the Federal Reserve. That's why he's not a viable candidate.
Yeah.
Last president that we had that wanted to do that was JFK. Oh, yeah. Remember what happened to him.
And also he wanted out the fact that the Israelis have nuclear weapons and Iran doesn't.
Yep.
Oh, did I say
let's
that?
speak about Iran.
I'm glad you mentioned that. You have the floor. I got my jacket. I still got my bulletproof, ray-proof outfit on. Hit it, bud.
Who says that Iran has nuclear weapons that we need to go in and destroy? Why are we going to bomb them again?
Only Israel says that.
Oh, and actually, nobody actually says that they have nuclear weapons. Everybody pretty much agrees that they don't. It's a foregone conclusion that they don't have nuclear weapons. They may want to make them at some time, but we have to blow them up now. Or do they have advanced technology that America doesn't want to get out?
How about all the gold in their banks?
Some information about that, and I guarantee you that would be a hell of a lot.
My stream just got hacked again. They are cutting my stream. JP, take it, will you? Oh, they're hacking my IP. They're hacking my IP, folks. Can you believe that? I'm trying to get a hold of JP. They got me good this time, folks. We really pissed off the powers to be this time. They hacked my IP stream. Them dirty boogers.
Iran, right?
JP, take the screen, please.
You did.
Got it.
Done and done.
It's all right. So we're on, been there. It's all right. Iran. Now, when I was a kid, Iran wasn't Iran, it was Persia. And it has this lovely, exotic, yummy kind of Persian promise, where all the women are beautiful and they do all this belly dancing stuff and they have all these spices and silks and cloth and, Persia. Right? And now it's Iran, right? Iran from you. I don't know. It's like it's been given a bad name, and it was also probably created on the 11th, as Carry the Numbers guy is going to talk about. So apparently these states are built on a particular day so they can be destroyed. And I don't like the idea of that happening to Iran, because some of my best friends are Iranian or Persian.
Well, and JP, I can speak from personal experience as somebody who's met Middle Eastern people as well. Granted, I can't say they were from Iran, but I can say they were from Iraq. And, there's some really beautiful people throughout the world. And it makes me a little bit upset that in America, we don't take the time to know our neighbors. We want to kill everybody in the Middle East because they're all terrorists. But most Americans haven't even left the state they were born in.
I can't say that.
I think it's sad. Well, I said most. I didn't say all. But I guarantee everybody in America that wants to kill a terrorist that's Middle Eastern has never been to the Middle East. They've never met anybody from that region. They've never been to that region. All they know about that region is, guess what? That's right, what they see on the news.
I just want to say for the record that I'm a very international fellow. I live in Texas, and I have been to a foreign country. It's called Mexico.
Oh, well, that counts.
That's not far anymore, Thomas.
And I just want to tell you, we're doing something right. You know why?
Because they're messing with you.
Every time they mess with me, it just adds credence, and it makes me that much more truthful, which is something the boys down there, the BLIS down there, and the alphabet agencies can't say. Now, with that note, I'm going to back out and let y'all talk.
Well, I just want to say that with all the stuff that they're doing to us right now, it seems like they're a little bit madder than a homosexual that developed a case of lockjaw on Valentine's Day.
Thomas!
Did I say that out loud? I'm sorry.
You know how mean my son is? Would you knock that off? I'm trying to support the community.
Thomas, please. All right, okay, I've got...
To all of our strong homosexual brothers and sisters out there, we apologize for Thomas. He knows not what he says.
Yeah, this is not specifically for Thomas, it's for everybody, really. But a sketch that was created, and I was very interested in the same subject, so I've created it. I can also feed it back to everybody who's on the call here. So here's the new updated bogus psychological hotline sketch. Welcome to the bogus psychiatric helpline. If you are obsessive compulsive, please press 1 repeatedly. If you are codependent, please ask someone else to press 2. If you have multiple personalities, please press 3, 4, 5, and 6. If you are paranoid delusional, we know who you are and what you want. Just stay on the line so we can trace the call. If you are schizophrenic, listen carefully, and a little voice in your head will tell you which number to press. If you're manic depressive, it doesn't matter which number you press. No one will answer. If you're delusional, press 7 and your call will be transferred to the mothership. If you're delusional or occasionally hallucinate, please be aware that the thing you're holding on the side of your head is alive and about to bite off your ear. If you're dyslexic, press 96966996699996. If you have a nervous disorder, please fidget with the hash key until a representative comes on the line. If you have amnesia, press 8 and state your name, address, phone number, date of birth, social security number, and your mother's maiden name. If you have post-traumatic stress disorder, slowly and carefully press 000. If you have bipolar disorder, please leave a message after the beep, or before the beep, or after the beep. Please wait for the beep. If you have short-term memory loss, press 9. 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 If you're a manic depressive, scream incoherently into the receiver while flapping your arms and doodling furiously at the mercy of your creative genius. Then lapse into a semi-conscious leaden coma and ponder how all of life is an exercise in futility. Repeat. Continue repeating. Forever. If you have ADHD, press, ooh, what's that? Shiny. If you're clinically depressed, just go off yourself now and save a low-paid worker in India the trouble of dealing with your whiny crap. If you have a self-esteem problem, don't waste your time, just hang up now. This is Wolf Spirit Radio.
Oh my God, JP, that was. I hope you made that into a little jingle.
I'm sorry?
I hope you made that into a little jingle.
Yes, it's possible. I'll put it on the site so we can all download it.
I'll tell you, I was laughing my butt off listening to it. It's a brilliant piece. I was hoping you'd play that again. This is SJ. Thank you.
You're welcome. I really like the, I made it. I just read this thing out. I've had it for years. I compiled it from all the different ones that I could find on the web, all the different versions of this joke, and put them all together. And I've had it on my wall for years at my studio and everything. And I found this Eric Satie piece, and I recorded it. I just recorded the words first, and then I just randomly literally slapped it onto that piece of music, and it fitted perfectly. I didn't need to cut anything, didn't need to edit it at all, and it even matches the mood of the music matches what the words are saying. It's just quite
perfect elevator music, yes.
Yeah.
Well, it's sort of a blend of 2012 and Benny Hill. With a psychotic element tossed in just to sort of clarify everything.
Yeah, a little fun psychotic element, yeah.
9, 9, 9, 9.
Although that shit about PTSD, that wasn't funny at all.
No.
I like my PTSD. It keeps me company all the time.
Yeah.
I've always got it with me.
Nothing like finding yourself in a corner curled up in fetal position wondering why.
Why?
One of the things I wanted to respond to is what the young lady you have on, and I can't remember her name. Pardon me, miss. What is her name? Eva.
Yeah.
What you were saying about children and the need for elimination and documentation and what to do next, your question of what to do next is something I've been pondering for 40 years. And there are certainly really good sources of people just to make I wanted to make sure, and I'm sure you know already what I'm going to say, in terms that it isn't a lost case. There's lots of people that are working on it. We have numerous people that are very effective. On the other hand, we have lost, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of kids a year that just disappear. And they're certainly being victimized in the worst possible ways, and those are pretty bad, right?
And what was that lady's name who had brought forward the issue of the Child Protective Services and then, within months, her husband mysteriously shot her and himself.
Yes. Well, that's a Canadian issue, and that was done. Freedom Screens did several shows on it. I think you guys have mentioned it many times and discussed it.
Well, there's a lady in the States as well.
Oh, many.
She was this lady. I can't remember her name, and I feel horrible because she put her life obviously on the line. She was on Alex Jones' show, and then a month later she was. Yeah, that's horrible. Yeah. Well, and I mean the thing is though, what is this Earth if we can't? Okay, so you look at holographically, you look at what's going on, and you look at the patterns, and you look at the pathology, and you see, okay, so divine feminine of the earth is being raped. We take without any thought of our resources, of our planet, of how it affects. We murder her with plutonium and, things.
Uranium, depleted uranium,
we don't need
heavy metals, yes.
Right.
Go on, there's the planet, right? Then there's species of animals. Then there's species of plant life. There's this pathology, this pattern of just unconscious killing, and then we do it to each other without understanding that we're all one. And I know that sounds like hokey, but you're
on the line. You're on the path. It's called the way. And it's respect and a knowledge that all life is sacred, and you have got it right, yes. But there's, of course, lots more to it and lots of details.
Mm-hmm. But the children, we need to show up. We haven't shown up with our government, and we haven't shown up for our children, and we need. There's, like the inner archetypes. We've been on a unloved boy archetype for years, where we're poking the dog and dissecting our sister in the corner and pinning her to the wall to see how does this arm work if I cut it off, and it's just bizarre pathology of questioning scientifically, where we could have been using that scientific exploration towards the betterment of society, and so we need to really reclaim.
Allocation. Please do. I want to interrupt, though, okay?
Yeah.
Please continue.
Go ahead.
I just want to say, this goes hand in hand. There's more history involved here than people realize. Because when Columbus came to Turtle Island, or what everybody knows as the United States and Canada, just in North America alone, there was a little over 100 million Indians. And nowadays, there's probably a little over 1 million or 2 million full-blood Indians left on Turtle Island. That's it.
Yep, you're right. It's especially evident here. We got to compare notes sometime. You know that, Thomas?
Yes.
Because I've got a lot of wonderful history on the Pacific Northwest natives. I like to call them originals, and I think that's a wonderful way of referring to them. Eh?
What do you call them, Eva?
First Nations community.
First Nations, yeah.
That's a legitimate way of talking about, the folks that we care about. But anyhow, what I was going to say is one of the problems we have related to what you were saying, Eva, and it's brilliant. You're on the right track, absolutely. I mean, I've been doing this stuff since 1967. Be glad to tell you about it sometime. But allocation is the big problem. Allocation of resource. But one of the things we can't do is leave out all the people that have made incredible positive efforts to reclaim those children's lives, to preserve them and to care for them. I myself somewhat specialize in describing to people how they can deal with the radiation exposure we're currently getting. But all of the event child abuse issues are something I also care about and have documented really well since 2000. I have some great archives, and that's primarily what I am, a reference librarian and an archivist, as an amateur, of course, but as a pretty gifted amateur. And it's certainly available to you if you ever need any research in those areas. I can give you a lot of leads. I brought up some of my, not to dominate the conversation, but I brought up some titles. I think I've got 50 or 60 I've stashed. just specifically on this about children since 2000, the year 2000. The topics are somewhat suggested. America's poorest children, elimination of a promised child tax credit, new styles of war, alleged pedophiles in, Republican circles, Democrat circles.
NAMBLA.
Yes, NAMBLA. And you're familiar with that, and so am I, and I'm glad to see another person that really cares. It's really severe. I think even one child tortured that way, it just absolutely
Have you seen the documentary that those 3 young Americans did where they went to, I think, Sudan or Sierra Leone, and
by a kid?
The night walkers, and they were just 3 young kids, went with a video camera, weren't really sure what they were going to capture, and stumbled across these kids these kids that are in a community actually leave their community at night and go into larger cities to escape the Lord's resistance, because if they're captured, then they it's almost as if, like what I was trying to get at with the Carrie Cassidy interview, when it's like Naomi Wolf, like there's this template blueprint that would-be dictators use to destabilize a society. Well, there's that same blueprint to destabilize human beings. And
Naomi Wolf, excellent reference. Boy, talk about that sometime in the future. But please continue.
Well, I love the fact that she uses a primer and says this is the steps that a would-be dictator takes to destabilize a society, based on looking back on all of the dictators of the past,
Right.
Mussolini
Brilliant
studied
woman.
this. Yeah. And so what I would love to...
She's a new generation. She's to me, a new generation, and you're about the 4th generation down, and you've got all the advantages of what we did. And,
exactly.
And you're being brilliant so young. It's amazing. I don't know if you realize how brilliant you're being as young as you are. Because a lot of people there, you deserve it because you're doing the work. But we need to always keep in mind that we stand on the shoulders of giants, right?
Exactly. I love Naomi Wolf. Love her. Yeah. And what I think would help society is if there was that primer for us to be able to identify the would-be steps that you take to destabilize a human being into a dissociative state, because then you understand what it looks like, and you're no longer, this
exposed
lone person.
To the psychopathy of a really bad paradigm.
And feeling alone.
Yeah,
Bill actually fought the majority of his life, especially the last 10 years of his life, thinking that he was one of the only people out there fighting against the system, and really feeling like there was very few people in the world that would ever believe him, let alone understand, let alone a stranger like Eva that, recognizes him the minute he pops up on the screen because of the shoulders of Kay Griggs and Naomi Wolf and, the things that have been presented by Carrie Cassidy and, seeing Duncan's videos with...
Oh, yeah, all excellent.
Thank God for all of these people. Thank God for you, Dave.
They're doing good research. People always... You notice how when people say nobody is doing good research, immediately about 50 of those names pop up in your brain and you're going, God, this person isn't aware of any of this, right?
Yeah. And what I'm saying is that these Lord's resistance, I'm sure if they weren't taught by the CIA how to destabilize people, these young children, and create super soldiers, they either were taught directly or indirectly studied it. And so that's what's going on, when Bill talks about, they basically massacred generations of people till there was nothing left, and whoever was left was corruptible because they had no support network or coping strategies. And so then they became the next super soldiers to fly planes into the USA. And, what happened...
You notice how many dimensions there are to this? First of all, we got slaves, outright stealing kids for slaves. Number 2, we've got organ theft. Number 3, we've got the kinds of pre-training that they're doing in the Middle East. We've got the kind of pre-training that we're doing with video games here. You notice how many attacks on children at how many levels there are? Doesn't it just stagger you?
Yes, absolutely.
Right on, brother. You guys had a wonderful show here, by the way.
Thank you. And I did want to emphasize something that you just said, is with video games. I mean, where Pops' generation and Duncan's generation and White Wolf's generation had to be trained through torture and fear. We play video games as children at the youngest levels to teach us war.
Well, you're hip to how pervasive the acculturation is, right? I mean, talk about that. You know how it's in every movie, right? And please continue.
Well, and even now there's a movie being released called Act of Valor. It's supposedly this, real movie with real Navy SEALs. And
the Budweiser
I know
boys.
Any Navy SEAL would watch that movie and say it's garbage. Because they don't show the pain. They don't show the death. And they don't show what your mind does after you lay down at night and think about the things that you just did. That's something that never gets in the movies.
I used to go down to the Veterans Hospital in Long Beach. And this was like in the early 60s. Everybody was coming. This was in 1967, 68, 69. And we got to make friends, but everybody was really banged up, I liked the guys in the Navy. My dad was in the Navy. He was a wonderful guy. And I liked them. And I got to know them. And the guys that went through Special Forces training, the early precursors to SEALs, the Navy divers, we got to talk to those guys when I was 16, 17, 18, right? They told me what I wanted to know. They were interested. They were glad somebody was interested in hearing about it, actually. And I learned about Vietnam way before I was 18 years old from the guys that had just gotten crunched up, bent, spindled, and mutilated there. Over.
Yep. I wanted to interrupt for a moment and kind of shift gears here for a second because White Wolf is not keeping a very good connection. And I wanted to get Bill and White Wolf together because White Wolf, Bill, you had something you wanted to go over with him for a moment and discuss some things with him. White Wolf was our guest here a few days ago, so oops, he dropped again. Let me call him back. See if we can't keep him on long enough for you to talk with him, Bill. White Wolf, you there?
Yeah, again.
Again. I'll just keep calling back.
All right.
Go ahead, Bill.
You have the way feather.
No, if for everybody that doesn't know, I popped into the show Saturday at the very end, and I was just fascinated because it was the first time I ever talked to White Wolf, and it was really cool for me because I don't know if anybody noticed it, but the way he and I were able to connect just in that short half hour, he actually, kind of warned me about something that I already knew was happening in my life, but he couldn't have possibly known about it because it was the first time we'd ever talked. And if you guys, want to know something, He was inside my head right there, and he knew something that was going on in my life that was pretty traumatic, and it was a big deal. Somebody that, basically the person that I was living with in my little hidey hole here was a betrayer, and turned out to be basically an international con artist that stole more than $1 million. And while I'm doing all this, I had to deal with that. And I was amazed that White Wolf was able to just pick that out of my thoughts and identify it and talk to me about it. And if you want to know how important and how special these old soldiers like White Wolf, like Duncan, like Dave are, know that they have talents. Know that they were the first ones to get these talents. And they're showing off, and people don't see it. They show that they still have these skills and that they're still probably the best of us and the ones leading the charge. And, I was completely amazed on Saturday when White Wolf was able to point that out to the world and for me to see it and go, man, you know exactly what I'm going through. Thank you. Thank you for giving me that little pat on the back and saying keep going. Because it means more from you guys than it does from everybody else, even though it feels wonderful when it comes from anybody else. But you guys, when you give me the pats on the back, man, I want to charge forward. And it makes me so happy to have the old soldiers know that what I'm doing is good. So, White Wolf, I can't thank you enough for what you did on Saturday to help buoy me up and get me through to today, because I just chopped the head off the snake today.
Well, it's good to hear. I'm glad you acted on it. I always tell all my students, I can't walk your path for you. All I can do is help guide you from the perspective I have. And the perspective I have comes from my life experiences and where I've been. And it helps some and it doesn't help others. But, I don't know. Somebody I don't think is too happy that I'm on this call. I think I've been cut off probably about a dozen times or more already. But, anyway.
It was a big deal. It was a big deal because actually we just watched the Swedish version of the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, and it was funny because we went to sleep and in the morning Bill had downloaded literally till his body shook me awake all this information, and in the morning he said, wow, that movie was so timely, and it's almost like life imitating art or art imitating life. But if you look at that movie even, the girl in that movie, she demonstrates most all of the, and I think more so in the Swedish, the original version, the typical text mark type behaviors of a monarch-programmed personality. She had the photographic memory. She was highly sexual. She was, a genius. She could move in and out of situations, read people really quickly. She could act without
Computer
any...
super genius.
Yeah.
Hang on just a second. JP, are we still broadcasting? Because I've got somebody in the chat room telling me that they're not hearing anything. Are we still doing the stream, or what's going on?
As far as everything's concerned, as far as this end is concerned, we are online and on stream, on message, uploaded, and downsized.
Well, if anybody in the chat room, other than the friend that messaged me, can hear us, would you please give us a 2 thumbs up or something in the chat room? Just, signify by pressing 1 repeatedly. I'm kidding.
The importance that I'm trying to state is that Bill actually in the morning after watching that show figured out some things, and he works really quickly, and I wanted to go back. As a problem solver, if you ask Bill directly to solve something, give him the criteria, he goes to work really quickly. And I don't think anybody saw his capacity coming. They put him in this house with these people, and he was able to solve this issue that mimics the conservatorship issue, and the conning and the inappropriateness and the taking advantage of at his own possible demise. He put himself on the line for somebody he doesn't even know. He brought down somebody who was conning as a conservator, you know, and then how it linked internationally. He's then put himself at risk because these are the people who were keeping him safe. So his whole stability has been shaken. And so I think what's really important is that people that are listening, that are kind of wondering, where's Bill been? He's been dealing with a heck of a lot and putting himself on the line for somebody he doesn't even know. And he did it very quickly and solved it very quickly. And it's pretty interesting that White Wolf, you called it from afar.
I've had a lot of practice. I mean,
Yeah.
in the years that I was training, I mean, we were trained to read people face to face, other rooms, other buildings, other states. That was one of the main reasons that I was brought into a lot of the underground bases in the different areas of this country, America, is because it was kind of a two-way training exercise. My locator had to be able to find me when I was, you know, in different levels of different bases underground, and I was supposed to be able to tap into the frequency of a name or whatever, a social security number, while I was in these isolation areas, you know, and, you know, come out with correct, viable information. So, yeah, it's just, it's something I've been doing a long time.
Well, and it was an absolutely brilliant read. I mean, I was just in awe and so happy to hear somebody say something to me at a time when I really needed to, you know, have a good conversation with somebody that I understood.
Well, good. Yes, I do understand, very much so. You know, and you guys, you've been covering a lot of topics here tonight, and you know, one thing that has been touched upon but not really come up is the importance of these underground bases and the tunnel systems connecting them, and exactly where they're going, how they're going, and what they're for, and how they're affecting our reality and perception above ground. I mean, you're talking about different frequencies, you're talking about different frequency locks, and you're talking about people waking up. But we have to look literally deeper. We have to look at the layers of underground bases and tunnel systems. The fact that a lot of these tunnel systems that go through the various states are actually going through or next to or above or under crystal caverns, okay? Where they generate, they don't generate, they actually absorb energy that can actually...
And he will not be allowed to talk about that subject, will he?
I'm calling him back.
Yeah.
You're back?
Okay.
Yeah, you're back.
I'm going to let him go because you're back. Go, quick.
I'm here. Okay. So anyway, you know, when we look at like the Denver airport, for instance, you know, I was in Colorado when they were building the new DIA, okay, when they moved it from Stapleton. And, you know, it was out in the middle of nowhere, and nobody could figure out why. People are saying, oh, for expansion, it's, you know, got nothing around it, blah, blah, blah. But it's because of what was located underneath and what's still located underneath there. You know, when I was out there...
Construction continues. Even
Exactly.
though the airport's done.
Yeah. Yeah, when I was out there, there was 7 layers underneath, 7 levels underneath the ground. I'm sure at this time there's more. And people say, well, you know, what in the world goes on in those 7 layers? And that's what's very interesting, because it's not just Denver. It is numerous bases all across the country, up through Canada, even down into Mexico. We have borderline underground bases that border Mexico in the United States and Canada in the United States. They're strategically placed along the borderlines, and this is actually where the beginning of the North American Union has taken place. And this is exactly...
Hang on, I'm getting it back. All right, you back?
Okay,
really
I'm back.
You're back.
Where was it? Okay, yeah, the borderline. Anyway, so these bases are multi-leveled, and each level has a specific purpose. A lot of the children that are abducted, from my past understanding and experience, where I've been and seen, we're looking at usually the top 3 levels of the bases. This is where the genetic experimentation processes go. Here in Northeast Vermont, there's a base that not many people know about. It's located underneath the Northeast Kingdom and spans into northern New Hampshire and up into Canada, into Quebec. And a lot of genetic experimentation goes on in this base. It's only about 3 levels deep, as far as I know. And what we're looking at is 3 levels of specific genetic experimentation, and we're looking at a process, a project that is trying to combine. We're trying to combine the human genetics with animal genetics, all right? So they're basically trying to bring back the old Atlantis type stuff. But, that's what the North Vermont base is pretty much dedicated to. However, it's also a major communication base between the Northeast coastal underground bases that we see in Kennebunk, all the way down to Fort Dix, where I was born, down into underneath Little Creek, and all the way down into Virginia to Deep Creek, to West Virginia, to the major underground city, which to my knowledge is the biggest one in the country, out to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and it connects these.
I live in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, Bill.
That's unfortunate.
Well, yeah, you just hit a real nerve there, actually.
Yeah.
Well, Wolf, I don't mean to disturb your train of thought, but we've had an interesting question come from the Green Chicken Balls chat room, and he says, "Do you need people's full names and birth date to read their energy?" And I know the answer already. Go ahead.
I can do it with a photograph and no name at all.
Yep.
He doesn't have a clue what my birthday is, and he already did it with me. So yeah, there's your answer.
Yeah, I just met Bill. Sorry, just met Bill. For
Bo and Luke Duke.
Whatever, an hour. Yeah, on the phone. Yeah. But
and
the
any kind of connections. Yeah.
Yeah, the tunnel systems. This is huge because the very lowest levels of these bases. This is where the tunnels actually connect from base to base, not in the upper levels. All right, so it's usually the lowest level. So Denver, when I was there last, there was like 7 levels deep. There's probably more. At that time, the tunnel systems did not come off of that to travel to China Lake, to travel to Los Alamos, to travel to Offutt, Nevada, or Nebraska, until you got down to level 6 and 7. And it is in these tunnel systems where these energies from electromagnetic technology, as well as the crystal technology that is being absorbed from the cavern systems that these tunnels run through. This energy system actually runs through these tunnels and creates a matrix, an energy matrix, just like we have the cell tower webs and radio webs and everything in the atmosphere. We've got these electromagnetic and crystal webs underneath. And this is huge because this actually reflects and attracts the illusionary matrix that holds the globe in the mindset that it is. And this actually can be looked at in relationship to the moon. Okay? And when we're looking at the matrix underground and the matrix that surrounds the atmosphere of the globe, we get locked into a specific manipulated frequency that controls the entire mentality of the global population.
Okay, so White Wolf got dumped. But let me say this. What he's talking about is critically important. This is such a big deal that we need to understand this crystalline matrix that White Wolf is talking about. White Wolf, please continue.
Yeah, these, people have heard of the ley lines, that lace the globe. And if you do your research, you find out that these ley lines, they travel along these ancient sacred sites. Okay, but that's just what's above ground. We have to look what's below ground. Okay, we have to look at the crystal matrix that is actually the foundation of these major structures that lay upon the ley lines, and that's why the ley lines are what they are. That's why they contain the energy of what they contain.
Yeah, let me get him back again. Hang on a second.
I think Stuart Sturdlow talked about the crop circles also creating and being man-made, created. I don't know if people agree or disagree. I have no personal understanding of that. I'm just throwing that in there that the crop circles were also mentioned by Stuart as being an energetic
force
stamp.
Are you back with this, White Wolf?
Yeah, for now.
All right.
But yeah, as far as the crop circles go, thank you very much. Crop circles, they're imprinting symbol frequencies in different areas of the globe, which also helps to keep the global frequency in the frequency zone that it is, which is subservient, fear-based, warmongering, blah, blah, blah.
There he goes again. He said blah, 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 and he fell out.
Well, and I'll keep going then and say this is what I'm talking about when I talk about my creating and believing speeches. This is how we create what we believe. Keep going, White Wolf. Thank you.
Oh, he fell again.
No, and he dumped again. Okay, but this is what we can use. We can harness this power. We can use this power. This is energy. This is very, very real. And the reason that we're led to believe in fear is because we are led to believe in creating that fear. And I think, White Wolf, are you back on?
Yeah.
And is that because they understand universal law and free will, and so they have to actually trick us into thinking fear and harness that momentum? Because if we understood we have individually each a choice to overcome that fear and choose to not give in to the idea that they have. Is that right?
It comes down to the basics of mind control, which I teach a lot about. I actually have a full course that I teach. Just the last one I taught was the beginning of December. But the basic of mind control is to be able to first...
Okay, getting you back again. This kind of dovetails into what Jay Wiedner and Anthony Sanchez were talking about up there in low orbit. Is the microsatellites, thousands of them that they have in low Earth orbit right now. I don't know if you can touch on that as well, White Wolf, or not. Oh, he dropped again.
What White Wolf is talking about is our connection to this higher energy, this higher force, and I think he's back on, so I'll just let him continue.
Which is why mind control is so important, because they understand universal law and free will, and so if they can't remove our free will, they have to create the illusion. Is that correct?
Or manipulate the free will.
Yeah,
what they end up doing is they understand that the mind is just a tool that we use, okay, to bridge the gap between physical reality or the illusionary physical perspective that we have.
It's like the plate. It's like the plate in holographs, right? That the multidimensional frequency is beamed through onto.
Yes, exactly. And so they understand that the mind is a tool. And so what they do is they manipulate the mind in everybody so that we only understand a small aspect of it. But they utilize the underground energy matrix combined with the atmospheric matrix that they have created completely to dominate and manipulate our perspective of reality, which holds us in the limiting out-picturing process. And out-picturing is what the mind does, because the mind is a tool. It is an energy, therefore it creates. All energy has to create in one form or another. If you put anger or resentment in a little bubble and you put it down in your body and you hold it there and try to ignore it, it doesn't matter, because you can ignore it the rest of your life, but it is still an energy, and therefore it will create and it will blossom into things like cancer. Okay? The mind outpictures constantly. So in order to control what the mind outpictures, you have to first limit our ability to understand what the mind is possible and how we...
Oh, he dropped his gun.
German New Medicine talks a lot about trauma frequency registering first in the brain and then through the energetic body, physical to energetic, but that when it's actually showing up, when cancer is actually showing up in the physical body from the trauma registered in the brain, that it's actually on the healing, the last portion of healing. Go ahead, White Wolf.
Okay, let's see. So before I got cut out again, where am I and what needs to be clarified from what I said?
You're in Vermont. It's
Thank you. I forgot that.
It's kind of cold there right now, even though it's late.
How about this? Where there's a lot of talk about the underground bases being destroyed. From your capacity to read, I'm gathering from your training, is that true from your knowledge?
No, there's very, very few bases that have actually been destroyed by something that's trying to help. Any base that's been destroyed has been destroyed because they've dug deeper or wider, and they have no more use for the section of base that has been, destroyed. They are digging deeper. The levels continue to grow deeper. The tunnels continue to grow deeper. And we're really expanding right now underneath the ocean floor with our tunnel system because the ability for the ocean to generate energy, because it's salt water, the expansion of tunnels underneath there has greatly increased in the past decade specifically. So a lot of the underground bases that are on the country, on the continent, are being abandoned because they're getting into deeper, more powerful tunnel systems. Most of the bases that remain intact on the continent are used for, again, mind control, genetic manipulation processes or projects, also bioengineered weaponry, chemical warfare, also link communications between continents, because a lot of the underground tunnel systems actually link base communications from continent to continent. And they're very, very hard to manipulate because of the mass of water that happens to be above them. And again, it's salt water, so it has a much...
Oh, Lord. I think he dropped again. Yep, he did. Okay. Let me get you back.
Well, it's a very interesting discussion. I've covered a lot of this myself. He's right on. I'd like to talk to him about further details, actually, if we had more time.
Okay, you're in Vermont, and you were talking about salt water. Well, go ahead.
Salt water, yes. And what is the main difference between salt water and fresh water, the capacity of it?
Conductivity.
Exactly. And so you have miles of salt water above these tunnel systems. Okay? Now, if you sandwich a tunnel system between this salt water and specific crystal caverns underneath, okay, below the tunnels. Just imagine what you can generate with that one tunnel alone that could cross over top of one of these caverns that contains these crystals, which these pockets are all over the globe. Of course, nobody hears about them because we're not supposed to know about them. Why? Because when you think about it, if they can tap into these crystal energy pockets, so can the rest of us. Why? Because it's just a matter of our mind connections. Okay? It's
whoopsie. And I'm calling him back again. Yeah, they don't want us to know what we're capable of doing as a collective, and we're about to find out what we can do as a collective. Aren't we, White Wolf?
Yes, I'm back. Everybody says, what can I do, what can I do, what can I do? Yes, you can get protests, you can write letter upon letter to, Congress, to, the President, to the Senate, to anybody and everybody you can possibly think of, okay? This is the long, hard road to take. Could you make progress? Yes, you could. But, history really shows that it's not so much a progress that happens the way you think it's going to happen when you write all these letters. The main progress comes from exposure, okay? Awareness, spreading the news, getting more and more people aware. The real work comes down to each and every individual's mind, okay? Your own personal healing, your escape from the fear and mind control matrix.
And that's what we were really hoping to try and communicate in the Carrie. When Bill invited me to come on, we were really trying to get to that huge marker point that you're making right now, is that in the individual, and so many people complain like, oh, this isn't new, this isn't revolutionary, and it's like, well, that's the illusion. And all that matters is that each person reflects and does the work, right? It's each person's job, because it's all an illusion. There is no great immaculateness and there is no insignificance. It's the same information set within the individual and the collective. And so all that matters is that the individuals start to do the work and reflect on how does that reflect in me. Correct?
That's exactly correct. Yes, and that's what I teach all of my students. I teach them how to access, the pure parts of their mind, the parts of their mind that they can actually merge back together with their core physical personality, so that they can generate enough power to break the matrix and tap into the greater consciousness. Outside this matrix prison that we're living in and existing in. But the only way you can do this is to bring all the separated sections of your mind from mind control back together. Because as they're separated, you got to remember that there's a lot of energy. Like I said in the last Saturday on the radio show, it takes a lot of energy to keep these compartments separated. Okay. Now, if you can break that and you can start merging these personalities back together into a core personality, just imagine how much energy you will have to work with to be able to break out of that matrix that we're talking about.
And I'll back White Wolf up, because he just dropped again, and say that's exactly how it works. That's exactly how I do what I do. That's exactly how he does what he does. You really have to accept that there is a power out there and you can control it, and that the power that's out there isn't out there, it's inside. Keep going, White Wolf.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. We're all here because we chose to be here. Okay, for one reason or another, we chose to be here. Even if only a small section of you chose to be in this earth walk, okay, that's enough. Because if you chose to be here, then you have a purpose. You saw an opportunity to experience and to evolve into higher states of being. Okay? No matter how much trauma you have been through, And I can tell you this from more personal experience than I would like to admit to. But no matter how much trauma, no matter how bad your life seems to be, okay, you're walking in that negativity for a reason. Okay? You are putting yourself up against a wall for a reason. And the reason is to show you that you don't want that anymore. But you understand that the matrix makes you lazy. Okay? The energy matrix of this prison that we're all involved in makes you lazy, makes you listless. And so it takes great adverse conditions to force us into proactivity. And this is something that most people don't realize. They like to complain and they like to bellyache about how hard their life is without saying, I chose this. I am out picturing this, and I'm out picturing it for a reason. And the reason is I'm tired of doing this, and I need to move forward. I need to move beyond this. And I am the only one who can do it. Nobody else can do it for me.
I just want to say really quick, there's a person in the chat room on Soul Spirit Radio named Merrick, and he was talking about how he doesn't feel worthy of being around people. And I just want to say to you, Merrick, I saw that in the chat room, and I just want to say to you that I have the feeling you might be wrong, because if you weren't worthy about being worthy for being around people, you wouldn't be here. And you're part of our family, just like everyone is part of the family. We're all one collective, and you're just like we are. You're a brushstroke on the painting, and all those brushstrokes are important, because if there's any one brushstroke that's missing, you don't have a complete painting. So we're glad you're here. Anyway, I'm sorry. Didn't mean to interrupt you, White Wolf.
No, I think
that's
awesome. Fine. Yeah. And would you agree that depression is part of life, and it's a language that is necessary and vital, and that we as a society have been conditioned to think that it's this scary, spooky thing, and it's just the equal and opposite, and then if one is present, then the equal and opposite is waiting to be discovered. There's never just one. There's never just darkness. Like, sometimes when we go through... My analogy for depression is like a tulip. You plant it in the winter, and it sits, or in the fall, and it sits through the winter in this dark, cold, hard dirt for months, and then frozen and alone, and then somehow it starts to warm up enough that the water from the snow melts and trickles in, and then you have to push through this dark, hard dirt. And yet, when a tulip comes to the surface and you look at it, it's like perfect. It's not scratched. It's gorgeous. But then it has to turn and open to the sun. And, like, I personally just feel like depression is a part of getting to understand that we don't know ourselves yet. And it's the beginning journey of what is the work to be done.
I agree. It's I believe that illness, what people call illness, is a conversation that your body is having with you. The things that it does wrong, the things that go wrong have a relevance, you know. I can't stomach this anymore, you know. I can't think of any others, but yeah, it's a bellyache, you know.
What you're
pain in the ass.
What you're trying to say is that your body's got the ump.
Your body gets the ump, that's right. You I've been teaching Thomas Cockney, okay? That's right. It's a long process. Meanwhile...
You've been teaching him
so
what?
We have a conversation about body. What was that, Dave?
You've been teaching him what?
Cockney.
Oh, okay.
The language of my land. So, anyway... back to you. The illness is a conversation with the body. Sorry to interrupt.
What's your website, White Wolf? They're asking.
I'm posting it right now.
waysofthewildinstitute.com.
Where did it go? There it went.
But yeah, all emotions, every single emotion has a purpose. Okay? But again, they're just tools, okay? And they're tools that lock us into the five senses if we don't understand how to use those tools. Okay, because depression, if you just get locked into depression and your physical body and how it makes you feel like crap and how everything around you is just gray and dim and life isn't worth living, okay, right there it shows you that even in the midst of depression, you're still locked in the prison of your mind. You need to be able to learn through, it's a process, but you need to be able to get to a point where you can elevate yourself out of depression, to look back on yourself in depression, to learn the lesson. Because you cannot learn the lesson very easily if you remain locked in your mind in the depression state. You have to be able to move yourself out of it. And what that takes is self-awareness. You need to become completely self-aware of everything you feel and understand that it is not you. None of it is you. It's a simple facet of your total experience. And that's it. So if you think you're depressed, you need to be aware that, oh, I'm depressed. But only this small part of me is depressed. Why? Well, let me move into a higher state of consciousness. Let me move into a different facet of my being. I'm not talking alter personalities. I'm talking you simply stand in front of a cherry tree and you look at the one side of the bark, and that's the only side of the tree you can see. If you never move, you will never know the other sides of the tree. All are the tree, including the roots, including the canopy above. You need to move yourself around the tree. This is the perspective point. This is what my teacher, my childhood teacher, called the awareness point.
I think physical movement is huge, too, because muscle memory and the capacity to just stay stuck, if we're not physically moving, if we're sitting in front of a TV or the computer and idle physically, I think that has a huge influence, too.
Yeah, that's why I get people out in the wilderness. I get them hands in the dirt, feet on the soil, and I get them working physical skills, because out there I can keep people grounded and teach them their connection to the greater aspects of life, the greater consciousness, through the wilderness energy, away from the most direct technological influences, which of course is the electric lines running through your house. It is the cell phone you carry in your pocket. It's the computers, it's the TVs, it's the cars, the batteries, everything. I move people away from that. Yes, you still have the stuff in the air, in the atmosphere, but you can't get away from that, unless of course you're in a granite cave, which is pretty much the only thing that blocks ELF and all that other stuff.
Or you could put an aluminum foil hat on.
Good, that would just attract it.
Oh, come on, guys.
Yeah, you can do that,
Don't make me give up my foil hat. I want to say one thing.
No,
I've had
around him.
Hang on a minute. I've had complaints in the chat room that this show isn't guided. This show isn't led. Now, this is a free forum. My guests talk about what they want about, because this show is about my guests. It's not about me or my co-host.
Well, we've also had compliments about this is like sitting around the fire drinking coffee or bourbon or whatever, and it's kind of a free discussion where everything goes, and there's people that appreciate that too, and so thank you to those people.
Yeah.
Well, where else do you get to talk about this information? Where else do you hear about this information?
Well, you could be guided.
I can't go anywhere and hear the things that White Wolf is teaching outside of a training facility that I was doctored in. It is amazing to hear this information out in the general public. So thank you.
Speaking for White Wolf, who's back, by the way, I'll just say it like we say down here in the South. Stick around a while, we'll learn you something.
Well, I just...
Yeah.
See that.
Am I the only one getting cut out here tonight?
Yes, you are.
Yes, you are.
That's nice. Okay. Yeah, it's funny because when I was on the show on Saturday, the next morning my credit cards were hacked, and all the stats on my website dropped.
Well, in the infamous
I can't connect my bank account to my PayPal account anymore, even though it was working just fine a week ago. So, yeah, I know that feeling.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
In the infamous words of Bill Cosby himself from the early 80s, my recommendation is you find those people and blow their face off with a bazooka.
Good luck.
We know where they're coming from. See, my people got hacked somewhere over at AT&T land in that magic mythical room that they have over there in San Francisco with all, and I repeat, all of the fiber optic goes through. And to AT&T, that's one more reason why I absolutely despise Atlantic Telephone and Telegraph.
And again, it all comes down to being non-reactive. Because when we feed our anger into things, guess what? They take it. It's like Jiu-jitsu. I've been teaching Jiu-jitsu for, I don't know how long. I've been training in Jiu-jitsu since I was 9 years old. Jiu-jitsu is about taking the energy from your opponent and using it against him, using very little of your own energy. And that's what they do. They are masters at Jiu-jitsu. Whatever you give them, they will take and use against you. And they do it since before you were born, since you were in utero. And they continue to do it.
The problem reaction.
I haven't been in utero so long I forgot what it was like.
So it is the non-reactive state, which is a state of balance. Okay? Yes. It's like the chessboard. I tell people this all the time in my classes. You've got to be, if you're playing chess, okay, what do you have? You have the white team and you have the black team. And what are they doing? They're combating each other. Now, this is your brain. This is you. You are the white team, but you're also the black team. But you can't be both at the same time. So you choose. Anytime you choose a side, you fight yourself. The only way to stop fighting yourself is to become the chessboard.
Yep.
You need to remove yourself from the combat, put yourself into the neutral observation position, and watch it, observe it, learn from it by being at the same time non-reactive to it, understanding that it has a purpose. And the purpose of your learning from it does not require you to engage in it. As long as you're engaging in the combative situation, you are locked in that prison of combat, and you will never get out until you realize that you don't have to fight from that position. You can fight from a position of neutral, balanced awareness and spread this awareness.
Like Gandhi did.
Well, Gandhi had some issues, and I've had a lot of people, contact me. Well, what do you think about Gandhi? Okay.
Wasn't he educated by the Rothschilds and then reached a position where he was still looked on as not equal, and is that right?
Yeah, Gandhi had some background issues. But what we need to do is look at what he was doing, how he was trying to get people to follow in the peaceful path that he was preaching. What was he doing? He was guilt. He was feeling fear. If you don't do this, I'm going to starve myself to death. The people love him. What do? Okay, they do what he wants. Why? So he stops killing himself. Okay? He had self-punishment issues. He also had control issues. He wanted to control people. He wanted to tell people exactly what to do, and he didn't threaten them through violence to them. He threatened them with violence to himself, preying upon their guilt.
Okay. Point well taken.
You can't do that. That's not balance. That is mind control. That is manipulation.
What about blessing them? Would that be a reaction to them by blessing them?
Blessing who?
The people that are doing this stuff.
Well, you could, okay? But again, you've got to understand that you have to do it through a vertical type communication, not a horizontal type communication. Because anytime you go horizontally, you have to go through interference. Okay? You have to move vertical communication because it's the only communication.
Oh, he dropped. Hang on, I'll get him back. I promise I'll get him back. I've got mojo. I've got mad mojo going on.
There he is.
There you go.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm back. So if you're trying to communicate with somebody, okay, and they taught us this actually with reading people, okay, if you try to read somebody horizontally, in other words, if I'm standing in front of you and I'm looking at your energy, okay, and I'm just looking straight ahead, I have to look through all of my illusions. I have to look through all of my own mind control issues, my own programming issues. I have to look through all of my imbalances. Then I have to look through all of the ELF, the microwave, the radio bombardments, the electromagnetic interferences. Then I have to look through the other person's programming and mind controls and imbalances. All of that I have to look through before I can even see that person. Okay? By the time you can actually see that person, your perspective is so distorted that to be able to accurately read them, or any situation, this could be an address, a social security number, this could be an underground base, this could be another planet. By the time you get to that, the pure frequency of that individual or thing, you know, who do you know? Who do you actually know? You don't know that person because you've had to go through all of that stuff. Instead, you have to go through vertical, okay, communication. This is where you actually enter the greater consciousness. All right? Within mind control, they were trying to lock us into our minds, but at the same time in the training facility, they were teaching us how to access the higher state of consciousness so that we could do our work.
Which is why fear is so important, because if you are in a state of fear, you can't access that full potential self that has connection to the greater information set outside of the personal information set, correct?
Yes, it's not only fear, okay? It's every emotion, because if you isolate any emotion and you just exist in that emotion, you're still locked into the mind matrix. You're not actually breaching consciousness.
You're putting words to what, he just dropped again. He's putting words to what I do naturally when I communicate with the Sasquatch people. I call it shifting gears in my head. And it's accessing a part of my brain or mind that I don't typically access in day-to-day living. But whenever I communicate with them, they'll usually thump me in the head. I'll feel some kind of physical bump, or what appears to be, or feels like a physical bump, and then all of a sudden I'm talking to them, and the rest of the world kind of fades away for a moment while I'm communicating. Does that make sense, White Wolf?
Yeah, I got in on the last little bit you were talking about after I was dialed back in.
I was thinking about how I communicate with the what I call the hairy folks, Sasquatch people. I call it shifting gears in my head, because it's a different awareness or a different consciousness that I kind of just touch, and I'm able to communicate with them.
Yeah, it is. It's a different perspective of your frequency awareness. All right, there's many levels of your frequency awareness, and we all possess this stuff. You know, none of us are special in that sense. We all have this capability. It's just being able to remember how to do it and to do the work, to be diligent about doing the work. Everybody has the potential to read frequencies. Everybody has the potential to tap into the greater consciousness and communicate with things that are not within this frequency level. Okay? It's just that we have been so conditioned and locked off through the prison of our brain that we have forgotten all of this stuff. While those who rule the world in political means, economic means, militaristic means, and even energy means, they have not forgotten. They pass it down through their elite bloodlines, this understanding. But where they slip is when they begin to train people like myself, people like Dave or Duncan or Bill in training facilities how to do this. That's where they break, because I'm not of the elite bloodline. I was trained to be a very specific thing, and things broke down in my mind, and I ended up getting myself out of that prison. And since I'm out of that prison, and they've tried to kill me. I don't know how many times. Through a number of years. It doesn't matter. They teach you how not to quit. All right? They ingrain that in you. And of course, you have to have some of this when you're born. You have to have this in your mental makeup anyway, in your spiritual makeup. But then they take this and they enhance it. And then, after you get out and you start talking, they expect you to roll over and quit all the time. Obviously, it doesn't work.
What's quit?
Yeah.
It works badly in my case.
Right on, Bill. Right on.
It's the only thing I suck at. Not quitting. Oh,
White Wolf,
Wolf,
do you explain
amazing
vertical
gentlemen.
communication?
Vertical communication. I can touch on it real briefly here. I do. Sorry?
This is kind of what I was trying to get to at the end of the interview with Carrie Cassidy. From my understanding of vertical communication, may be the same thing as you. When we can access a place of peace, is what in holodynamics we call a place of peace, where you go to a frequency where you can access an information set outside of your personal information set, then you have a greater menu of options, where in hyperspace, all things are past, present, future available. And so what happens is you connect to your full potential through a place of peace or a vibration that would put you outside of that mind control, and you connect to another person's full potential. Correct? Something like that?
Okay. Yeah, same thing, different terminology.
Yeah.
My teacher called it the complete self. And what this is, it is the non-physical state of which we come out of. Everybody has one. Every living creature has one, whether it's a plant, an animal, a human, it doesn't matter. Everything comes out of the complete self, and within the complete self there are countless number of lifelines. Okay, these are all different states of consciousness. Okay, that stream out from this higher state of consciousness into linear lifelines for experience levels. And release and transformation is about taking all your experiences and letting them go, releasing them into this higher state of consciousness, into the highest state of your consciousness. Because this is the library zone, where every linear state of consciousness that is streaming out of that complete self can tap into to gain everything and anything that it needs to know. Because no question will come to you unless some linear lifeline that came out of your complete self has experienced it and sent that information back into what you might call a mainframe. Okay? So this is vertical communication. It is communicating on a higher level. You're actually rising out of your physical manifested being. You're tapping into this compilation of consciousness, and from there you can actually expand and connect to other people's complete selves and send communication directly to them. The trick is, if they're not open to it, if they're not listening, they won't get it. But it doesn't mean that we can't try, okay? Because one day they might open themselves and be able to start hearing that. Okay, this is what you call a knowing. All right, if you think about that and you go, well, you just go through life and something comes up and you just know. You know the answer. You don't know how you know the answer. Well, that's where it came from. And that's how we get information. Okay, on the core level. Everybody can receive it in different ways. Some people see it as in images. Some people hear sounds. Some people hear words. Some people get all kinds of stuff, whatever, gut feelings. This is the knowing, and that's where the knowing comes from.
I have a question, White Wolf.
What is it?
When I'm out with my wolves or my canines, when I'm surrounded by them or I'm taking care of them, I have such a feeling of peace I cannot describe it because it's just like I'm somewhere else with them.
The pets are a huge thing. If you have a pet,
please.
Okay, companions, four-legged companions, some are winged companions, some are swimming companions, okay, however you want to term it. These creatures are actually, in a way, extensions of you. Okay, you can see your personality in them. If you are a single person in a household and you have a number of companions, you can actually look at each one of those and identify a part of yourself in each one. If you are a number of people in a household and there's only one four-legged companion, for instance, in the house, the person who resonates the most with that, maybe canine, maybe feline, okay, is going to be the one that has the greatest characteristic similarities between each other. And what they are there for, they exist on a lower frequency than the human. Okay, this is not to say that they're less or worse than us. That's not the way it is. It's just simply different frequency levels. Okay, plants exist at a much lower frequency than humans do. But plants are exceptional living life forms upon this planet that we rely on. Our very existence relies on them. So it's not that they're bad, it's just simply a lower frequency. Well, animals are a lower frequency than the human, especially when you're getting into a domestic animal. Okay? And what happens is they choose to come into your life just as you chose to come into your parents' life. Okay? They're there to teach you, okay, about yourself. A lot of people, it's funny, this past year I've had a number of people call me up or write me, from all over the world saying, my pet just developed cancer and died, or my pet ended up getting a tumor and we had to get it operated on. And what I tell them is, okay, is that your companion? And they say, yes, it is. And I say, well, what they're doing is they're absorbing the pain and the difficulties from you, manifesting it in their body, and then showing it back to you. This is especially the case with canines, because canines are loyal protectors. They protect you not just on the physical from a physical attacker. They protect you from yourself and the negative mind patterns that are inside you eating at your body. They will manifest it and show it back to you. So if your canine has a tumor, the first thing I tell them is, okay, you need to look, what emotions are you holding on to? What emotions are festering inside you? Because your pet is showing you that directly. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does.
Well, it's not just canines either. I do know of this cat that does the same thing for me. So
you're right, yeah.
It can
be a bird.
I just want to say this. You have confirmed something that my wolf Herc taught me, that he and I had an agreement before we ever came to this life cycle that we were going to be companions. And he told me I had the same agreement with every canine I have here, and the horses too. No, I'm crying because this information is just so critical to people. If you have a canine or a cat or a dog or a rat or whatever, you have that same agreement with that animal, fish, or bird or whatever it is. And if you don't take care of them, if you abuse them, you're going to answer for it. Believe me, you're going to answer for it. Oh, thank you. And now I understand why Herc had trouble with his back legs, because he's taken the problems from me, and I got to figure out what I'm hanging on to, and we'll talk about that tomorrow. But I have another wolf here, or two wolves here that had problems with their back legs.
Back leg on a canine is propulsion through life. The front ones pull, the back ones push. It's an energy from your past that is still propelling you into your current life actions, your current life experiences. There's something in the past, in your past, that is non-beneficial and is still controlling your life in the present.
Can we talk about more about this tomorrow?
Sure.
Thank you. Oh, every time I have a show, I learn so much that I had forgotten that I shouldn't remember, but I know it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I'd like to say thank you for the flow. I think that really what's important is that everybody has an opportunity to discuss these things openly, and it's in the individuals sharing with one another that we learn. And much more could we learn from than you, Dave, and bringing forward all the experiences you've had over the generations that you've, overcome and continue to find a way to show up for the rest of us. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Eva. I really appreciate that. And I want to know why I have mice here, because they keep getting into the traps and triggering the traps, and I keep giving them a...
Well, what's a mouse? A mouse is a rodent that infests your house. Your house is a representation of you, your body, your energy field. If you have mice getting into your house, it means that there's something trying to weasel its way into you, your energy field, your body. Something is annoying you. They're a pest, they're a rodent, that's what it symbolizes.
Is that what the remote viewers try to do to me, that they can't get through my house?
Yep.
Because my wolves have a huge white vortex over my house, because I've had so many people step into my house and say, my God, with all these animals and it's so peaceful in here. I mean, I am blessed beyond whatever I could express.
Well, Dave, you know what having mice in your house is a sign of?
What?
A need for Jack Russells.
I just want you to know, on that note, I've got mice in my house, and they were here before I moved in, and they'll probably be here after I'm gone, so I just look at them as part of the family.
Part of the stir fry.
I've got squirrels living in the attic, and the squirrels and I have an agreement. As long as they don't chew any wires up in the attic, I won't have to put a bobcat up there in the attic to chase them out.
Sure. What are squirrels? Squirrels are hoarders. And what's the attic? The attic's your mind. What are you hoarding in your brain?
I have no idea, but they're part of the family too.
Very good. I love your feminist perspective. Brilliant.
I'm so glad Tracy is not on the call with us right now, because she would be giving a sermon about how squirrels are really demons and they're trying to take over the world.
Oh.
Well, when you've got Jack Russells with mice and squirrels are like food additives.
Well, my Jack Russell Sassy, who I've had for 13 years, I had for 13 years. She's 16 now. In December, she passed over the Rainbow Bridge to be with Herc.
Yeah.
And they come back every once in a while, let me know that I'm doing okay and they're doing okay. They don't have to worry about food or getting their nails, their claws clipped or anything like that.
Yeah. You know, David, they opened up a world of beauty. You got to remember that, and they're still alive in your spirit. You loved them while you can, love them while you can, and remember them when they're gone, right? Keep them alive in your mind. That keeps their spirit in the best possible place that you can help it be, right?
Yeah, but when Herc was passing across the bridge, vision was opened up, and I saw him leaping and running and jumping like you never could hear. And then I got a close-up, and there's all my dogs and cats on the other side waiting for him, with the lady who passed away 3 years before he did, dressed in white, calling him, and he ran up to her, looked at all those animals, turned around, looked at me, and I got a blast of love that almost knocked me off my feet. Wow.
Quite a vision.
Yes, it was.
Quite a vision there, bud. See, that's the thing. You got to have that touch of divinity, eh? That touch of things that are right. That's what they're for. You know, they keep us in touch with another form of reality that we forget.
Oh, I never forget it.
Well, and White Wolf, I just want to let you know that Eva will back me up on this because we were just talking about it. Somebody that we know had a problem with a cat and injured her back, and basically was explaining it the same way you explain things about the animals in our lives and how they manifest what's going on in our lives. And I know Eva will back me up on this. We were speaking very specifically on it, and I basically said the same thing. It's uncanny that all of a sudden this animal has this problem with her back, and it reflected 100% on something that was occurring in that person's life.
Like a life choice. But the thing was, it wasn't the first cat that had it was the second cat in that person's life that had broken its back.
Very trippy stuff. Hard to get your brain wrapped around if you're not ready for it.
You're still there, White Wolf?
Now he's not.
He dropped right as I asked that question. I cursed him.
But
it's the
Dave, I did want to bring up something now that we're talking about animals because it kind of reflects on it. Stuart brings up the concept of genetics and what happens if you're more than 50% reptilian. Tell him I really want to know the answer to this question. What happens if you're 50% the other way? What kind of special gifts do you get if that happens?
That leads me into only one question. Does that mean if you're half and half, do you swing both ways? Oh!
I think there's three parts.
God.
I know. There's JP. You sounded like Tracy that time. Good job.
God. I'm trying to pronounce God with an H in it. G-H-O-D.
But yeah, I'd love to sit down for an hour or two and talk to Stuart about human hybridization and my theories and how they apply 100% to what he talks about.
Well, he's going to be on my show the 31st. He and Janet, the 31st of March.
Well, I guess we'll just chat it up then, won't we? Because spent some interesting life experience with cat hybridization and what happens when you mix wild cats with domesticated cats and some fun things that go on there.
I know all about that because I've got we have two kittens who are half wild and they don't like us. They found our vibration quite intense and ran away a lot. But
what breed are they?
They're right. I wouldn't. 57 with a bit of feral in it. I'm sure it's got some like Scottish wildcat, but one's all black and one looks like Hitler.
Yeah.
It's got a white cat with Hitler's hair.
Well, you can imagine what happens when you mix a cat like Zeus with a domesticated house cat and how funny those little guys turn out.
What's Zeus? What breed is he? Is she?
The serval.
What kind of cat?
A serval, African serval.
Okay. I was going to ask you. I was going to ask you if he was a Jagaroony, but I know his spots were too big for a Jagaroony.
No, and then the breed is called Savannah when you breed a serval to a domesticated house cat. Well, the fun thing is when you take a cat that's already a hybrid, a Bengal, and breed that to a serval, and you still get a Savannah, but it's a Savannah with a little bit of Asian leopard cat mixed in. Fascinating stuff when you start to drill it down.
When you get into those underground bases where they do genetic experimentation, it gets even more fascinating.
All right,
Exactly what I'm talking about.
Now that you've
exactly what I'm talking about.
Now, can I ask the question?
Please.
Come out of the chat room. White Wolf, what about your special DNA?
That could be a whole radio show on its own.
That's what Bill is trying to get to.
We can do a whole show on that if you want.
I could come back and talk about that. Yes, I did touch on that in my book, Shadow Scorpion. I believe in a few places in there. It's something I've known about since my childhood teacher, told me about it. And then it's been extremely prevalent through the rest of my life. And only in the past 2 years have I actually been learning the truths about it and how it helps and has helped keep me a slave to the global matrix because of the frequency that the globe is held in based upon the moon energy. But again, like I said, this is a whole nother radio show. But yes, those genetics are definitely there, and it was one of the reasons I was chosen for the training facility that I was placed into.
So, let me ask you a question on that. Is that DNA that they hybridized into you, or is it something that your body was born with?
This was actually DNA that came from a past life, a number of past lives, or simultaneous lives, if you will, because of the resonance within my spirit energy. And because it was so prevalent within that spirit energy, see, the mind creates your body, right? So whatever comes through spirit into mind creates into physical manifestation, into body. And so that's pretty much where I ended up getting this DNA mix in this life. But when I went into the training facility, I found out that this was actually tampered with when I was a child. The tampering actually began when I was in utero, before I was born. And then after I was born, supposedly I went through a series of, you might want to call them upgrades, which ended up really materializing around the age of puberty, which is the age where a lot of the genetic openings, the coding in your genetics, a lot of your coding opens at certain times in your life, and that is the time when this really opened in my life. And then it was only a few years later that I entered the training facility, and these abilities that go along with this genetic structure were brought out, isolated, and then enhanced.
So somebody's asking in the chat room. So somebody in the chat room is asking. So the jackal baboon hybrid, is that something that you would say was probably down there, or how would you address that?
Jackal baboon hybrid. Are you giving just an example of what might be in the genetic testing labs in the underground bases?
Well, that's what somebody in the chat room is asking.
Okay, well, what the main purpose of the genetic projects that they have, there's, as far as I know, and there might be plenty more as well, but when we're talking in the realm of human-animal, the main point of the genetic experimentation project is to, one, in the human side, breed or create, in this case, a better programmable and controllable human being. And when you're looking on the animal side, they're looking to genetically create animals that can withstand the global changes that they are creating. Okay, because the animals today are suffering greatly from the underground interferences, electronic interferences, magnetic interferences. The animals today, the plants today, are suffering. They can't take the stress of it, and so they're breaking down. We see this in the disease ratio of animals and plants globally speaking. And of course, people blame it on acid rain and this and that. Okay, partially, a small part, that's part of it. But the biggest part is the energy frequencies that have been changed upon this earth. And what they're doing is they're actually genetically testing different species to create specific animal and plant species that can withstand these energetic changes, these dramatic changes. And they're also working on, just like they take fly larvae and they put it with tomatoes to make a more pest-resilient tomato or whatever. Okay, there's all this GMO stuff. It doesn't have anything to do with making a better crop. What it has to do with is changing the genetics in those who eat it. Because if you can change the genetics, then obviously you can predict the outcome of these genetics, how these genetics will act and react to given scenarios. And so they want to change the human genetics through what you eat and through the air and the chemical intake. They do the same thing with the animals. And one way that they do this is they actually mix animal and human genetics in the underground labs. Okay, this is stuff that was around back during the Atlantis time. Okay, and of course you end up getting things like werewolves and were-lions and were-jackals and were-hyenas. Okay, were is just a Latin name for man. Okay, so it's basically combining human DNA with animal DNA, and you end up getting all these odd creatures that people report seeing all over the place. Okay, and people, they call them myth, they write them off, they say they came through a vortex, blah, 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 blah. A lot of them are created in underground labs, like the one that's underground in northern Vermont. Okay, that's just one. These things are everywhere. And that's just touching the surface of it.
Is that the Plum Island? Is that the...
I'm sorry, what was that, Bill?
No, that's not... Oh, I was saying, is that the Plum Island one, but that's not in Vermont?
No, that's not. No, it's the one under the Northeast Kingdom.
So they love showing us these things in movies, and of course everybody thinks it's a great science fiction movie like The Island of Dr. Moreau.
Sure, what they show you in the movie is what they're trying to imprint you with so that when it comes out publicly later on, you're no longer shocked. The shock value's gone. They've already introduced it to you in the mass media so that you're desensitized to it.
Great.
Yep.
That is absolutely true.
The other reason they do it, White Wolf, is because they can. I found that's the most fascinating reason about why they do these crazy-ass experiments.
Sure. That's what science is. It's about experimenting. It's about manipulation of life in every possible way you can possibly imagine.
Mm-hmm. But it's coming from that unloved boy-child archetype where there's no boundaries, there's no matrix of loving boundaries that says this is the direction we're going in, and we've been operating on the unloved archetypes, which are victim, if you're thinking girl child archetype, and then the unloved boy is the rogue warrior who's out, hacking arms and poking eyes out just to see what happens when they do it. It's like, well, who cares? Why do we need to know that? Why is that important? Why do we need to know, like Japan and its human experiments, 731 Auschwitz, and why do we need to know how to twin mind through trauma? Why is that important?
It's all about control. That is all about control. That's why my genetics were enhanced the way they were. It was to better control me and utilize me for the skills that I had, for the work that they had me do.
Well, and White Wolf, just to back you up, all the nines were picked because they're genetics primarily.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
Everything else could be created.
Well, on that note, with what we're talking about at the moment, I think it's important to ask the question, since we know what they're able to do with electrons, protons, and neutrons, the only question left to ask is, why are we still following morons?
Not all of us are.
Yeah, I don't know if you are paying attention, but we're pretty much all about not doing that right now, I think.
Yeah, definitely so. But yeah, the genetic manipulation, experimentation, and usage is a huge topic that could easily span an entire radio show in itself.
Oh, and we should talk about it, White Wolf, because boy, do I have some things I would love to say when you gave your piece of the information.
Well, if old Pops there will invite us back, I'm sure we can find time.
Oh, I plan on having you two back at least once or twice a month.
I'm here.
As much as you can get us.
I need to clarify something. I call Dave Uncle Dave. The reason I do that is because he has this little jingle about, the power behind the throne, and now he's on the throne. Well, he really was the power behind the throne, because he was there was a guy up front that everybody saw, but he really was the Dave at Wendy's.
You said you wouldn't tell, Thomas.
Sorry.
Okay, I have a question, White Wolf. So, where do we discern between being the chessboard, or how, in situations and scenarios where we're talking about mind control, and we're talking about, children who are kidnapped and are tortured? Where...
Yeah, I understand your question.
Yeah.
And that's where it comes back to what I was talking about before. Everything that we see outside of us happening in life, if you see it, it means it exists somewhere inside you. And that is a very hard thing for a lot of people to swallow, because they see it as poison. But what it is, it's their own poison coming from their own imbalanced mind patterns, mind energy. If you see things outside you happening, it's happening somewhere inside you. And the only way that you can fix it is to fix yourself. And that is why you have to remain non-reactive. You have to remain the chessboard, because if you get tricked and lured into joining the black team or the white team, you will again be drawn outside yourself to combat and waste energy and stay in the state of distraction. If you can remain neutral and understand that you can't help 2 million children a year by yourself by going outside yourself. The only way you can help is to do your own part through your own self-healing, so that your mind stops out-picturing this stuff. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think that where does conversation and exposure and momentum play in that? Do you know what I mean?
Yes. When I talk on these radio shows, or when I talk to my students, I do my very best, and I always have to cross-check myself that I'm remaining neutral, okay, that I'm not getting sucked into somebody's prejudice or somebody's drama, okay, that I remain neutral ground. And Dave was talking about, his animal companions, and he was very emotional about it, and he has every right to be. But I cannot do any good at all and offer any kind of beneficial advice if I allow myself to get sucked into his emotional experience. I have to remain neutral. Therefore, I can tap into higher states of consciousness and understanding about the entire situation because I am the chessboard observing all the different sides. I'm not choosing a side or getting sucked into a side. So presenting information has to be done in a neutral format of just saying, this is what I know, here it is, take it how you will. I don't want to influence you by thinking that I think genetic manipulation is bad or I think it is good. Okay? It's all relative. It's all relative to your perspective in your experience, and I don't want to control that. So what I try to do is spread information from as neutral of a standpoint as possible.
That's observing the law of free will, isn't it?
It is, yes. Everybody has their free will, and to influence other people purposely is trying to manipulate them.
Right, that violates the law of free will because you're influencing their choice at that point.
Yeah, we all have a
karma.
Yes.
That incurs karma.
It's an energy that you have to deal with sometime down the line. Yes.
So when people talk about, you know, the dark ball or how they're screwed or, you know, winning, losing, that is an illusion because in reality, the paradox are created when one exists. They both exist and cancel each other out. And so if we're looking at a timeline of transformation where we're looking at people having a greater connection to their full potential, or what was it that you called it?
Greater potential, just the higher evolutionary process, the higher frequency level of self.
I think you give a really good example there in White Wolf that I hope people will cue into. And the way I look at it, you gave me a new way to ask myself the question: am I being just a piece on the chessboard, or am I being a chessboard and seeing it all?
Yeah, you know, I'll give just an example from my past because that's all I can give. I can't give an example for anybody else because I haven't walked other people's lives. You know, when I was young, I was trained in very spiritual ways, you know, by a native elder, and it was. People would look at that and say that was very good. Okay, that was very light, very pure. It was high frequency. And then I got dropped into the government. I went into training facilities. I was tortured. I was beaten. I was electrocuted. I was waterboarded. I was forced to kill time and time again. You know, I was rung through the ringer I don't know how many times. I was moved all over the country. I was moved through Canada, Central America, you know, and the entire point of, you know, my training was to kill exactly who and when and where, without question, without fail, without interference. And people would look at that part and say, that's dark, that's bad. But without that experience, I would not be here today doing what I'm doing, trying to assist the world from my perspective. It would also not have given the weight to the spirituality that I was taught as a child. And if that spirituality I was taught as a child did not have to endure the hardships, again, it would not have shown me the weight and the potential of this spiritual process. So I don't view either one as good or bad. They're both parts of me as a whole, and they both had a part to play, and so they were played.
And have you found a place of gratitude for both?
Depending on the day you ask me, yes.
Good question, Eva.
I still have a long way to go with my healing.
It's almost like a tub full of water, and the water's rocking back and forth. So some days it's over on the right side of the tub, and some days it's over on the left, because it goes back and forth that way.
Yeah. Yeah, maintaining the chessboard mentality is not always easy.
Well, I can tell you my experiences aren't, nearly as intense as what all of you have gone through. But I will say that in being involved in not having a choice and having, someone put something in a drink and wake up the next morning going, what? It woke me up to things in society. And the biggest one that I got, because when you talk about or think about rape, it is always the stranger in the bushes that's going to come out of nowhere, or it would never happen to you, it's going to happen to somebody else. And one of the things I realized is the majority of those cases are friends and family, very close people, which is not something we really know publicly in society unless we know somebody it's happened to. So that was a wake-up call. Secondly, men don't talk about it, and that is heartbreaking because, women talk about it and they get stereotyped as, victim blaming, like how short was your skirt, what were you wearing, what did you say? But men don't talk about it at all, and that to me is harder, I would think, because I'm a Gemini and I got to talk about everything, but, which is my godsend in this situation, I think. But then I started to look at the bigger picture, because I learn best by looking at the macro and then bringing that back into the personal. I looked at species of animals, and I looked at the planet, and I looked at, communities, like the First Nations communities, and I looked at, hearing about these random things that, these things that seem random, like this one woman stood up at a conference and said, my dad was a Canadian well-respected judge who prostituted me throughout his career, and I didn't remember anything till I was 35. And I remember sitting there thinking, oh, that's weird and isolated and strange, and it wasn't until, I actually started to learn about mind control and I saw the systematicness and understand that's why we have the society we have. We have been systematically controlled by the people in charge, and we're lucky if we get through life without some kind of torture, which is horrible. That's my realization. And so whether or not that's true for everyone, I understand it has everything to do with perspective. And perspective, what the good guys see is, the action that needs to be taken, to the bad guys they see it as an aggression towards their security, and it's perspective on both sides. And so understanding that equal and opposite always exist, then you can look to transform the illusion into its potential without reacting to the illusion of the perspective.
Excellent, yes? Eva. Excellent.
Yes.
Yep. That's neutrality. That's being the chessboard. That's being aware of both sides and being non-reactive at the same time.
And Thomas has been preaching that for some time, haven't you, Thomas?
A little bit different wording, but yes.
And people wonder why I spend the time to have a radio show. Because there's so much I forgot I knew. No.
Well, if you had talked to me in 2008, you would have talked to a very different person. But that year is the year that I came up against the absolute brick wall called the Sasquatch people, because that was a hard case I was up against.
And there's not a lot of people that I know of that share that openly. And so what a huge victory on behalf of a collective to come forward and say this is something I've experienced.
Things have never I don't know if I should term it that way. Things have not affected me the way they have other humans around me. I'll give you an example. I was struck by lightning. I had a dream about it 2 weeks before it happened. That was almost identical to what happened. So I was hitting the right foot by lightning while sitting on a queen-size bed in the second story of a house and thrown across the room. And I kind of lost all my fear at that point, because if I can survive being struck by lightning, why not go and drive a yellow cab in the city of Houston? Hello! So, you know, I mean, it never has, and I've seen a man that can literally call me midget, and I'm 6 feet 7 inches tall, and it didn't cause any fear in me. In fact, I was a little frustrated because I have to look down to watch where I'm going, because I have vertigo and I don't want to step on anything that will knock me off balance. So I took 3 steps forward, looking at the ground. When I looked up, he was gone. And that was a moment of frustration, because I'm sitting there thinking, my God, you're 3 times my size and you're the one leaving? And White Wolf fell off again, so I'll get him back. But yeah, you know, it's never, gosh, I can't tell you how close they've come to me at nighttime. And I've actually had one touch me on the shoulder before, so that was an interesting experience too. But it never has really scared me or anything of that nature.
Oh, Thomas?
Yeah.
To look asked me, where's the 10-foot pole?
To look tall, Luke, I'd better be careful, because if I fall on the ground, I'm going to start grabbing ankle hairs and pull them out as hard as I can.
Toluk talks to my Mustang and my wolf. He talks to the other 2 wolves too, because I mentioned his name. Look at me like, why do you want to know?
Yeah. So it's just one of those things. I don't know how to put words to it or explain it. I did never ask for this. The only thing I said in 2008 is that I didn't want to be here anymore. I was done. Then I had the open mouth insert foot moment, and I said the word but if you guys want me to stick around, for any number of reasons, you're going to have to give me a reason to get up every day. And it was 2 months later that I saw my first Sasquatch in person, and she was probably about my height. She's 6.5 feet tall. So that's all I can say about it, Eva. If you're still there.
Oh, I am. Sorry, I just had it muted. I didn't realize I was talking back. I think, and again, it comes back to 2 things, perspective and sharing. And then when we share, we can learn, number 1, we're not alone, and number 2, something more than what we've experienced through each other, and reclaim those parts of our lost selves, of our mind, like White Wolf was talking about. When we share, we have those aha moments, like, oh yeah. And we reclaim parts of our mind through sharing with each other, and others sharing their reclaiming with us. And this is so important, Dave, so thank you again.
Yeah, you know, I've had to look at myself carefully in my own speech, the way I use words and the way I look at things, because my dealings with the hairy folks, and I now call them blurry folks, because somebody said, why are they always blurry in pictures? And I said, I don't know. And they said, well, that's the blurry folks. And I'm like, okay, we'll start calling them that, blurry folks. One thing I learned with them, though, is to really not be on what I call autopilot with my wording or communications with them, because if you say it, they will take you literally at what you say. So it's very important to be very precise with what you say to them, because they will take you at face value, and they'll do exactly what you're asking or what you say, and it's like, I didn't ask for that. And yes, you did. And I'm like, no, I didn't. Yes, you did. Okay. So it's really important to be precise with your wording when you're talking to them, because they take everything at face value and just right off the bat.
Oh, well, boys, I think I'm going to have to call it a night, unfortunately.
Are you wimping out?
Well, you know, it is past my bedtime here, and I do have somebody that I still need to talk to privately before we go to bed tonight. So.
Okay, Dave, do you want to start wrapping the show up or what?
Yeah, we're going to wrap it up because Revolution Radio has told me that they've taken the whole show tonight, and Hawk has stayed up, and he works for tomorrow. And if folks are listening there on Revolution Radio, please hit the donation button. Every penny they make goes to it. And I want to thank Bill and Eva and White Wolf and Jeremy and Thomas and Randy and SJ for calling in. And folks, I'm going to play a little song here, and we're going to kind of mute our mics while it goes.
Wait a minute. We got one more group of people to thank. You're forgetting.
Thank you, Creator.
Oh, no. That goes without saying. We're always thankful to that which is. No, I wanted to thank all those people on the other side that have tried to interfere with us. This has been a very character-building experience, and thank you from the bottom of my heart. There, I said it.
Okay, and if you guys will just mute your mics, I'll play a little song over here.
Dave.
What?
Dave.
What?
I'm producing, so.
Oh. You're right.
This is Wolf Spirit Radio.
You gotcha.
Oh, JP, I'm tired. What can I tell you? It's been a long day.
Right. Okay. So we'd like to thank everybody for listening. We've had great attendance this evening. The attendance is growing by the week with the averages. It's great to have all the new people, all the new friends and Wolfpack members with like Randy and Rebecca's coming on more times in a week. And we have more and more interesting shows. So do stay tuned to Wolf Spirit Radio.
This is Wolf Spirit Radio.
Yeah, I do like that one. I like that one.
Yeah, so do
and so tune in. Who have we got next? We've got Tracy Kennedy tomorrow night. What time, Dave?
3 o'clock Pacific time. And on Saturday,
then on Saturday,
we have Douglas Dietrich back.
Oh, that's very good.
And Sunday from 12 to 1, we have Stuart and Janet.
Yes, we're talking with Jerry Sager, who's a beautiful... she sings in musicals. She's an award-winning singer. They met her on the boat. Great thing.
You're having it on your show?
Who have I got on my show?
Katie Galliante.
Yeah, but she's not very well, so she's had to cancel. But I'm sure, we can find things to talk about.
Well, I'll be there
it's not
Sunday
like
with
short
you.
of a subject or two. The thing is that I've had to reload my system, and there it is. That's not the one.
Are we off the air?
No, not yet. Here we go.